Welcome to Liz's 360, a lightning round of what's happening this week around the world and on Capitol Hill, and how it impacts Main Street USA with a quick peek into next week. Let's get started. First up, shutdown or no shutdown. Now remember, there was a last-minute deal that avoided a government shutdown. It actually runs out next Friday, November 17th. To avoid it, there's a few options. The House could finish their 5 remaining appropriations bills. The Senate would have to act on their 9 remaining bills. And then they actually have to reconcile their differences all by next Friday. Very unlikely. The new Speaker of the House, Louisiana's Mike Johnson, just 2 weeks into his job, here's what he had to say.
We certainly want to avoid a government shutdown. It's a dangerous time around the world right now. We recognize that, and we're doing our job.
He's talking about a few ideas, including passing a new continuing resolution through mid-January. But the truth is, the House and Senate have very different bills, so I'm guessing that we're looking and heading to a government shutdown. We'll see. If there is, it couldn't be at a worse time from a foreign policy perspective. I talked about the impact on a recent podcast interview. And the world is watching when we shut down. And guess who's not taking a time out? Putin, Xi Jinping, Ayatollah Khomeini. I mean, they're not taking a time out. You can listen to the full podcast to hear my full take on the impact of America's ability to operate in a government shutdown, such as no diplomatic confirmations, no global development programs or grants launched. I explained how our embassies overseas are deemed essential, but 75% of State Department personnel would be furloughed. Now just imagine going to a big box store that's still open, but their mothership is largely closed. Eventually, supplies run out, there's limited customer service if something breaks. You get the picture. This could be especially concerning at a time of spiraling global conflicts. Takes us to topic number 2, these growing global threats. 2 wars, growing humanitarian crisis, and the real concern is these threats are growing. Here's Secretary of Defense Austin testifying before the Senate.
Only firm American leadership can ensure that tyrants and thugs and terrorists worldwide are not emboldened to commit more aggression and more atrocities. Certainly, a failure on our part to follow through in support of our allies or partners exacerbates some of the things that we're seeing.
I'm certainly paying attention to the interconnection of these global threats. In just the last several weeks, Russia hosted Hamas leaders for meetings in the Kremlin. China welcomed President Putin to Beijing, praising their no limits partnership as they were consolidating their 130-country Belt and Road Initiative, and Iran is deploying weapons to Russia for use in Ukraine. So not surprising, Secretary of State Tony Blinken continues his whirlwind diplomatic sprint around the globe, this week meeting with 10 leaders in 4 days just in the Middle East before heading to the G7 in Tokyo, which takes us to topic number 3, which is really important. The National Security Emergency Package is now before Congress. A package to tackle the threats from Russia, Iran, and China, along with the growing humanitarian needs. Among other components, it includes an additional $35.5 billion for diplomacy, development, and humanitarian assistance, and USGLC is fully supportive of it. Recently, I spent the day with 30 retired 3- and 4-star generals and admirals up on Capitol Hill, led by Admiral James Stavridis and General Tony Zinni, to advocate for this comprehensive national security package. Listen to Admiral Stavridis.
We have vital legislation in front of the Congress today that will be critical in all 3 of the crises we face. Israel, in Ukraine, and then finally, the tensions between the United States and China.
I was also with Republican Senator Todd Young, one of the Senate's most respected voices on these issues, hosting him for a town hall meeting in his home state of Indiana. Here's what he had to say.
There's, I think, a natural impulse to want to withdraw. And that would be, I think, the most disadvantageous thing to us, to our way of life, to our future prosperity.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell has been one of the loudest voices in support of a comprehensive supplemental. Last week, he issued his own stark warning.
The threats facing America and our allies are serious, and they're intertwined. If we ignore that fact, we do so at our own peril.
The Senate is expected to take up this emergency package next. And as I keep saying, without a comprehensive emergency package, the risk to America's security and economic interests remain daunting. So, what to watch next? Look out for our crisscrossing flights above the Pacific and key summits taking place in the U.S. and Japan. We'll watch the G7 meeting in Tokyo with our key allies. And next week, China's President Xi Jinping will be flying to San Francisco as part of the APEC summit, where he'll meet with leading American CEOs before that anticipated meeting with President Biden. We'll be watching all of this and much more. So stay tuned for the next Liz's 360.